Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Director of Defense Media Activity, Mr. Hal Pittman, and the Commandant of the Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton, welcome to this morning's Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I'm Tech Sergeant Caleb Mayfield, your Master of Ceremonies. Please rise for the arrival of the official party, the presentation of the colors, the national anthem, and the invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Order, right face, forward, lift, lift, lift,
Let us pray. Come and be with us, Lord, during this long-awaited ceremony where we get to honor a few distinguished alumni of the Defense Information School who have made extraordinary and lasting contributions at the highest levels in our society. But even more than honoring them and celebrating their amazing achievements, may this ceremony nurture a thriving determination for strength and truth in every DINFOS graduate carrying out their duties today, so that we can witness even greater things in Hall of Fame ceremonies yet to come. We are delighted, Lord, to be a part of this historic event, and we are thankful for those who have worked so hard to make this day possible. Bless our time together as we induct our new class into the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Staff Sergeant Stanford, for that beautiful rendition of the national anthem, and Lieutenant Jimenez for the heartfelt invocation. We'd like to offer a special welcome to the members of our official party, Director of the Defense Media Activity, and today's keynote speaker, Mr. Hal Pittman. The Commandant of Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton. Defense Media Activity Deputy Director, Mr. Gene Brink. DINFOS Deputy Commandant, Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Melinda Singleton. And DINFOS Command Sergeant Major, Michael Carden. We'd also like to welcome the Vice Chief of Navy Information, Rear Admiral Paula Dunn, Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of Navy Information, Master Chief Tony Sistai, Director of Governmental and Public Affairs for the U.S. Coast Guard, Rear Admiral Megan Dean, the Deputy Chief of Public Affairs for the U.S. Coast Guard, Commander Scott McBride, and the Sergeant Major of Army Public Affairs, Sergeant Major Stephanie Cleveland, there we go, and Senior Enlisted Advisor, Headquarters Marine Corps Communication Directorate, Master Gunnery Sergeant Antoine Gibson. We're happy to see former DINFOS Commandants, retired Army Colonel Jeremy Martin and Air Force Colonel John Hutchison, as well as DINFOS Hall of Famer, retired Army Sergeant Major Jim Gilbert, class of 2021. Finally, welcome to the families, friends, and special guests of our inductees, both here and online. As we begin the ceremony, we'd like to take a moment to remember Jim Bryant, a DINFOS Hall of Famer in the class of 2012 who passed away in December. Mr. Bryant was an award-winning photojournalist and a friend and mentor to so many. His imagery appeared in the New York Times, Washington Post, and the London Daily Mail, among many other publications. Over his lifetime, he was recognized for countless awards for his photography, including a Pulitzer Prize nomination. Although he is missed, his legacy lives on throughout our community, and he will always be celebrated in our halls. Since its establishment in 1964, the Defense Information School has trained and educated soldiers, airmen, sailors, Marines, Coast Guardsmen, DoD civilians, and international students in the principles of public affairs to prepare them to communicate effectively on behalf of their services and the DoD. With the consolidation of the Defense Visual Information School and the Defense Photography School in 1998, DINFOS began training world-class visual information and broadcast maintenance professionals. Today, DINFOS continues its tradition of excellence, preparing public affairs and visual information professionals to communicate with consequence in a rapidly evolving information environment. Our 7 distinguished honorees are part of that proud tradition. They are accomplished DINFOS alumni who have made extraordinary and lasting contributions at the highest levels in the military, public service, industry, leadership, academia, and entertainment. These honorees represent the very best of our graduates, and today they take their rightful place in the Alumni Hall of Fame. The 2022 Hall of Fame inductees are retired Army Sergeant Major William Armstrong, retired Navy Master Chief, the late John Burlage. Accepting on his behalf is his friend, MC1 Mark Ferrum. Retired Marine Captain Dale Dye. Former Assistant Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs, Mr. Robert Hastings, Jr. Retired Army Command Sergeant Major Emma Krouser. Navy veteran Paula Pedene. And retired Sergeant First Class, the late Thomas Clark Taylor. Accepting on his behalf is his son, Michael Taylor. Now, it's my honor to introduce the Commandant of the Defense Information School, Colonel Richard McNorton, for welcoming remarks and to introduce today's keynote speaker.
Good morning, DINFOS. I'm pleased to welcome our distinguished guests, family, and friends. Today we are inducting 7 new members into the DINFOS Hall of Fame. These DINFOS alumni are being inducted for their exceptional service and accomplishment in the military, in the private sector, and to our nation. The individuals we're recognizing today are linked by more than just their ties to the Defense Information School. Their careers and accomplishments are marked by common themes: leadership, vision, selfless service, excellence, innovation, transformational impact. All of us who are DINFOS alumni, many of us, almost all of us here in this room, should be proud to be found in the same company as these dedicated servant leaders. They are part of a rich and proud heritage that makes this school absolutely unique among DoD training institutions. DINFOS is where we train, educate, develop, and inspire the next generation of military communication professionals. It's a special place. Those who have graduated from here are known across the Joint Force as DINFOS trained killers. In celebrating our Hall of Fame inductees and their accomplishments, we also celebrate this amazing institution and its 58-year legacy of excellence. Finally, I want to offer my heartfelt congratulations to all of our Hall of Fame inductees today. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce the man who helps the school posture for the future and is committed to helping us continue our critical transformation of our training and education programs so our military communicators can maintain a competitive advantage in the information environment. Mr. Hal Pittman.
Well, good morning. Come on, this is a room of communicators, right? We can do better than that. Good morning. Good morning. That's a little bit better. Got to put my readers on here. That's what happens when you get a little bit of mileage on you, right? Flag and general officers, distinguished guests, family and friends, DMA and DINFOS teammates, and to all those joining us online around the world, welcome. It's truly my great honor to be able to be with you here today as we gather to induct 7 incredible Defense Information School alumni into the DINFOS Hall of Fame. So before I get started this morning, I'd like to recognize some folks, starting with our new commandant. When I call your name, please stand. Colonel Rich McNorton, Lieutenant Colonel Lindy Singleton, Miss Julie Blackburn. Julie, where are you? Don't be shy. Captain David Morris, retired or almost retired Colonel John Hutchison, our previous DINFOS commandant. Where are you, Hutch? There he is. Also, I'd like to recognize First Sergeant Abram Pennington and Mrs. Tammy Griffin Henley, who were joining us virtually. Could I get a round of applause for these folks to acknowledge their great work in developing and facilitating today's ceremony? I also want to thank our DINFOS Joint Color Guard team members, our singer, Staff Sergeant Amanda Stanford, who performed the national anthem, our narrator, Tech Sergeant Caleb Mayfield, the greeters, escorts, ushers, and students who are supporting today's event, and the team members handling our broadcasts and our photographers today. As those of us who are in the business of producing events like this know, it's the folks behind the scenes that make it all happen. So thank you all for your efforts today in helping us honor our inductees. Thank you. The DINFOS Hall of Fame was established in 2013 as a means to honor great accomplishment amongst DINFOS graduates. The military schoolhouse has existed in one form or another for decades, and our graduates are among the very best in the world of communication. All of the individuals we will induct into the Hall of Fame today are highly deserving of this honor, having gone far above and beyond the call of duty. They've all worn the cloth of our great nation, serving with great honor, integrity, and perseverance, while helping tell the stories of the DoD, our services, the men and women who wear the uniform of the United States of America and our country. Some of today's inductees are trailblazers, breaking barriers, while setting the standards for military public affairs practitioners that we seek to live up to today. Others are transformational leaders who helped elevate the role of communication across the DoD and government. Some are inspirational mentors and coaches who fostered the success of others. And some have fought against great injustice at great peril to themselves. All of them, to a person, have achieved amazing success and shifted the arc of history. As we talk about DINFOS and today's inductees, as in all superhero stories, a short origin story is appropriate. The American military's use of communication tools, particularly during wartime, dates back at least 160 years to the American Civil War, where the venerable Stars and Stripes newspaper was born. Later, following World War I, the Army and Navy established photography schools to operationalize visual information. And following World War II, the Army Information School was established at Carlisle Barracks to train a new cadre of public affairs officers to inform the public and the fighting force. As mentioned earlier by our narrator, the Defense Information School Charter was issued on February 21st, 1964, almost 60 years ago, and in September 1965, DINFOS opened its doors at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. So I'm going to ask for some audience participation here. Can I see a quick show of hands to see how many Fort Ben DINFOS graduates we have in the room? Raise them up high. Don't be shy. It's not about age, it's about professional seasoning. And I'm proud to count myself among you, so thank you. Always got to be about competition, doesn't it? In 1995, the DINFOS Schoolhouse moved here to Fort Meade, and additional training consolidations followed, placing all public affairs and visual information training under DINFOS and under American Forces Information Service, or AFIS. During this period, changes also occurred within our military employee communications organizations. In 2005, the Base Realignment and Closure Committee recommended consolidating military media elements with similar missions: Army Soldiers Magazine, Army Broadcasting and Soldiers Radio and TV, the Naval Media Center, which included Navy Broadcasting and All Hands Magazine, and the Air Force News Agency. It made sense to have this new agency co-located with DINFOS, so on January 1st, 2008, the Secretary of Defense, Robert Gates, formally established the Defense Media Activity, and AFIS and DINFOS rolled into DMA as part of the command structure. The Defense Media Activity held its groundbreaking ceremony April 8th, 2009, just across the street from DINFOS here, and in 2012, we officially opened our doors for business. Today, DMA encompasses all employee communication capabilities of the DoD. That includes AFN television, radio, and multimedia content delivered around the world, and very soon it will also include an AFN television app delivering video on demand via mobile devices. DMA also owns the policy and mission oversight of all public affairs, all public-facing websites within the department. And we're building the web.mil enterprise service to be able to ensure cyber-secure content delivery for all DoD sites, and that's about 5,000 to 6,000. It's going to be a big lift. We operate the Pentagon Briefing Room, providing DoD's window to the world. Our service unique teams at DMA produce award-winning Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Space Force internal productions, news, and information content. Our DIVIDS capability enables the services and joint units to upload and share imagery instantly from anywhere around the world. We're also the administrative support headquarters for the iconic Stars and Stripes newspaper, which I mentioned earlier. And of course, that DINFOS training mission falls within DMA's oversight. For those who are in attendance today who aren't familiar with DINFOS work, simply say it's world class. DINFOS trains our U.S. military, DoD civilians, international military, and interagency students in public affairs, print and broadcast journalism, photography, video, multimedia production, graphic design, and equipment maintenance. Our teams have won hundreds of production and communication industry awards, Emmys, Tellys, silver and bronze anvils, gold quills, Clarion awards, blue pencils, you name it. We've won it, and we have plenty more gas left in the tank for tomorrow, so stand by. We're just getting started. DMA's content producers operationalize the learning that DINFOS bestows upon new and seasoned graduates alike. One team, one fight. This school produces winners, period. And all you have to do to understand the magic that happens within these walls is look at the distinguished list of DINFOS alumni. Popular television and radio personalities, best-selling authors and syndicated columnists, Pulitzer Prize winners, congressmen, senators, and even 3 vice presidents of the United States. And yeah, thank you. And while DINFOS trains all DoD communicators, a select few will differentiate themselves, demonstrating truly superior performance, innovative leadership during and after their military service. Going that extra mile, doing what others would not, coming back stronger every time they were knocked down, mentoring, coaching, and leading from the heart. Now, I just mentioned a few of the national accolades and awards our military global production and public affairs teams have won, and I'll tell you, we're on a good run. But if we've been successful, it's because of those great Americans who came before us and blazed the trail of excellence, modeling service before self. We have truly, to quote Sir Isaac Newton, been standing on the shoulders of giants. So, who are the giants, you ask? We need to only look at the front row of the auditorium to these distinguished leaders who will, in just a moment, be inducted into our DINFOS Hall of Fame to understand what greatness looks like. They epitomize the spirit, the service, the dedication, the accomplishment of the best amongst all DINFOS graduates. They are the gold standard. Army Sergeant Major retired William Armstrong, who led numerous combat documentation teams and functions, served a key role in creating the Mass Communications Foundations course, MCF, for graphics, photography, and videography, led the Army's actions to merge the 25 Mike Graphic Illustrator and the 25 Victor Combat Documentation Specialist MOSs, and was intimately involved in professional development for visual information, creating both training with industry and degree opportunities. Navy Master Chief Journalist John Burlage, who documented and told sailor stories for more than 40 years. Master Chief Burlage served his final tour of duty in uniform as the CHINFO Senior Enlisted Advisor, then came back. His last day of work was on a Friday. He started work on a Monday with Navy Times, where he worked another 18 years as a journalist. John passed away in 2020. He's represented today here by his former Navy Times colleague and longtime Navy journalist Mark Ferrum. And, you know, I noted earlier when I came in, at least 2 former Navy chiefs of information are here to see John inducted into the DINFOS Hall of Fame, and that's quite a statement for an impact of an individual. U.S. Marine Captain Dale Dye, retired, who served more than 13 years as an enlisted combat correspondent, received 3 Purple Hearts for wounds received in combat in Vietnam, and who continues to shape the public's perception of the military today through his extensive work in Hollywood motion pictures. Mr. Robert Hastings, a retired Army Public Affairs officer with nearly 4 decades of combined federal and state military service, my former boss, by the way, at OSD when he was Assistant Secretary of Defense, who also served in DoD's most senior nominative role as ASDPA, leading the worldwide joint public affairs community of some 4,000 military and civilian personnel. Command Sergeant Major retired Emma Krouser, a 26-year Army veteran who broke numerous barriers and became the first female senior enlisted leader of DINFOS. She was a standard bearer, helped move the Army public affairs from a garrison to an operational mindset during the early years of operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, and she was also previously inducted into the Army's Public Affairs Hall of Fame. Former Navy journalist Paula Pedene, the first female news anchor for the Navy's weekly broadcast news program, Navy News This Week, an award-winning communications executive with the VA, and the whistleblower who unearthed the VA's wait time scandal that ultimately forced the resignation of the VA secretary and the reform of veterans' health care. And Army Sergeant First Class Thomas Clark Taylor, a Vietnam veteran and Department of the Army civilian whose storied Army broadcasting career spanned nearly 40 years. Clark ultimately retired as Director of Soldiers Radio and Television, was responsible for numerous innovations in Army broadcasting, as well as mentoring dozens of future leaders. Mr. Taylor passed away suddenly last September, and while he's no longer with us, his legacy lives on and will be felt by those whose lives and careers he positively impacted. His son Michael and his grandson Thomas are here today, representing him. And it's my understanding also that some of Clark's kids are also almost on cue, are also in the audience. But that illustrates the ripple effects of what great leaders do, great leaders like Clark, what they do across an organization and across generations. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I'll ask you to all stand and give a hearty round of applause for our 2022 DINFOS Hall of Fame inductees. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. To the friends and families of our loved ones, of our inductees who have joined us today, thank you for your support that you've provided over the years. These individuals would not be here without all of you putting in the time and the love to help them do the mission. Thank you. Thank you. And while their individual accomplishments differ, all of today's inductees cast big shadows while on active duty and created lasting positive change in their wake. In closing, once again, my most sincere congratulations to all of the DINFOS Hall of Fame inductees. Your accomplishments are truly remarkable. You have made significant impact, not just on organizations, but amongst the people you mentored and developed to carry the public affairs torch forward. On behalf of the Secretary of Defense and our great nation, I thank you. Strength through truth.
Thank you, Mr. Pittman. At this time, we will formally recognize our honorees and induct them into the DINFOS Alumni Hall of Fame. We'll begin with retired Marine Captain Dale Dye. Mr. Dye couldn't be with us today, but sent a recorded message.
Sorry, I'm forced by a frenetic schedule to send these long-distance greetings to the faculty, staff, and students of the Defense Information School. You know, I have some fond memories of DINFOS back in the day when it was based at Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. It was a schoolhouse that not only gave me some valuable training, it also gave me my first opportunity to meet and work with information specialists from all of our services. That was a crucial asset later in my career when so many of my assignments were with Joint Service Commands. Of course, back in those days, we were dealing with things like producing base newspapers, writing press releases, or recording PSAs for local radio and TV stations outside the gates. It's a whole different ballgame now, and the burden on military information specialists is so much greater. As a guy who used much of my PA and information training to forge a second career in showbiz, I recognize the importance of messaging and imagery, the kind of things you are now focused on at DINFOS. I also understand the crucial role DINFOS students and graduates will play in strategy and tactics as we face growing threats around the world. Telling the American story, relating the American military's role in that, and communicating our national objectives has never been more important. With your DINFOS background and training, I'm confident that you will be up for that challenge, and you need to be. I'm very grateful and very humbled to be included with so many great DINFOS grads in the Alumni Hall of Fame. Again, sorry I can't be there to meet you all in person, but I'll try to make that happen at the earliest opportunity in the future.
Mr. Dye plans to visit DINFOS at a later date to accept his certificate in person. Now, Sergeant Major Armstrong, will you please come forward?
Ooh, you gave me a few minutes. That's scary by itself. Good morning, everyone. I didn't write anything, and my wife's mad at me right now because I said I've winged it my whole career. I'm going to wing it one more time. We'll see what happens. If they come get me with the hook, come get me with the hook. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. But good morning again. I'm humbled to be here. It's a great place to be. You took part of what I was going to say, though, sir, because you said Benjamin Harrison. I did not go there. If you read my bio, because I'm a VI guy from start to finish. So I went to the lovely place called Lowry Air Force Base in Denver, Colorado. Anybody raise their hand and went there with me? Nobody. Just me. Well, you missed guarding the missile, you missed walking in the snow, you missed all that fun. But it was a great place to be. And as I was coming to think about this place, a few things hit me about stuff I've learned from the Defense Information School all the way through. So when I got to AIT in 1990, I had an instructor named Staff Sergeant Thomas. I can't remember his first name, sorry, I'm that old. He actually was an instructor here for a long time ago. He was one of my AIT instructors. And we've all sat in them classrooms probably where the instructor's like, one of y'all are going to be somebody doing something that's going to do something to something. And you always sit there going, yeah, right, whatever. Oh, no, not me. And I was AIT. I was a lovely little private. So we move again to 1999. I went to BNOC, ALC. Lo and behold, who's my instructor? Sergeant Thomas. He's saying the same thing. We're all young sergeant E5 sitting there going, hey, he said, pay attention. You never know when you're going to be that person that might have something to do to affect something in the military, in your career field, or whatever. Again, we're all like, whatever. Are you done talking? I got somewhere to be. Years later, he was an instructor here for I don't know how many years. I ran into him. By then, I was his first on the combat camera. And he's like, I told you. I had no idea. I'm here. Most of the people that are in this room that have worked for me, that's why I'm here. My job was to take care of them. My job was to make sure whatever they were doing was better than what I dealt with, or what I had to go through, or my idea of what was going to happen down the road to try and make it better. Some of the stuff that was in my stuff, working on MCF, merging a career field that should have been merged a long time ago, stuff like that, because it was the right thing to do. It was what we should have done. I'm glad a lot of it has gotten done. I never sought out stuff like this. I did it because I was taught it's the right thing to do. You go do it. I don't care. A lot of people told me no through my career. Did I always win? No, I didn't always get what I wanted. But I usually fought for it, even after I was told no. I've been told by a few guys wearing stars, please be quiet, Sergeant Major, and I kept talking. I still got to retire, so it worked out. But, so I'm really here because I believe I'm here because I fought for what I thought was right for our career fields. And I still believe in that. And I can see that because the people I see in this room, most of them are close to what I was when I retired or going to be. So that they're now doing what I hear they're doing what I was doing. So I guess I was doing something right. So thank you again. I appreciate this. I'm humbled. I I never thought, I've always looked at that little alumni page going, gee, I wonder how you get on to that, do something like that. And the next thing you know, I'm being notified, hey, by the way, you're going to be on that page and you're going to be remembered for, I'm like, better take a pretty picture, shave, see all that. But thank you again, I appreciate it. I like coming back here. I do come back and visit. I appreciate it. I was able to get my family out here, which they hardly ever get to see any of these type of things, especially when I wore a uniform, because I was usually doing ceremonies in some austere place where nobody could see it. So thank you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Sergeant Major Armstrong. MC1 Ferrum, will you please come forward?
Side note is that plaque will return with Master Chief Sistai to Chinfo, so everybody can remember who John Burlage was, as some of us do every day. I remember him every day, and John was the first official senior enlisted advisor to the Chinfo, and he will live on in the office there, and I thank Master Chief Sistai for agreeing to that, since we have no family member to send that home with. So, but John, if you want to get a picture of who John Burlage was, watch John Wayne in the movie In Harm's Way from 1965, because that was John's hero, and in the way John carried himself, you could see a little bit of John Wayne in the way he did things. Everything was slow, everything was deliberate, but John, he was amazing, and maybe John Wayne actually got something from him, because in 1964, John Wayne embarked on the carrier Kearsarge, and JO1 John Burlage spent a week documenting John Wayne, and the pictures are in my briefcase down under there. John shot with a 4x5 camera and other ones, and it's amazing, and he wrote the article, and I think he felt really good about it, because there's about 4 or 5 clippings in his folder that we have today, and no other story had that many things in there. But just go home, search your streaming, watch In Harm's Way, and you will see John Burlage in action. And maybe that embark that John Wayne was on was to prepare him to be, a senior officer in that movie, and it's described there. And someday we're going to get John's writing, which is very unique, up to honor him. But as his, to the core, John Burlage was basically 3 things: a Navy Chief Petty Officer, a journalist, and a husband. Anybody and any of the Navy Times crowd used to say how much he honored his wife and talked about that crazy little redhead and he was going home to, or he's going to go home and write and be with the crazy little redhead. So he was quite a husband, but as a chief and a journalist, he's proudly told a few of us here that his favorite day was the day that he made Chief Petty Officer. It meant a lot. And John, as a chief, that was how he operated both in uniform and out. He mentored up and down the chain. Okay, John mentored Chinfos. John mentored editors of Navy Times. At one point, he wanted to be the editor of Navy Times, and he wasn't chosen, and he could have been a jerk about it. But what did he do? He took this young kid half his age who was brought in to skipper the paper, and he was his command master chief. He taught him the ropes, and that gentleman couldn't be with us today, Tobias Nagley, but he will tell you that John showed him the ropes like a real chief, both at the Times praise in public, chastise in private. There were closed doors discussions, and I know because I was there, and I was John's understudy. I met him first on active duty when my class graduated from Syracuse, and he was larger than life then. We had a few drinks and had an argument, but fortunately years later he didn't remember the argument. So, but this gentleman here, Harry Gerwin, walked my resume into Navy Times, and together they saw something from a guy who was mostly a photographer and gave him a chance to learn to be a writer. And John taught me a lot. But John's teaching started early. John was always teaching. As a prolific writer, he worked with everybody. Harry Gerwin here will tell you the story of John trying to make him a writer. And if you know Harry, he's photographer extraordinaire, but he's not known for his bylines. But for a week straight after they covered an event, Harry was struggling to produce a story that met John's standards, that the pieces were there, but they weren't right. So each morning, Harry would come in, and on his typewriter would be the list, the scratchings, and Harry would set about to try to type a whole new version. And John, the next morning, and for 8 days, Harry was dreading to come into work. And finally, one day, this was on Harry's typewriter. And this is vintage John Burlage. The following is a letter of appreciation for all the good things you have ever done. If you find yourself getting teary-eyed, you can not only look to this letter, but you can also use it for a useful job, drying your eyes. He had such a way of writing things. He could write a complete paragraph in one sentence and keep your interest through the whole thing. And we know how tough commas are to overcome. But he was a storyteller. He would tell me, though, when he left Chinfo to become, the star writer at Navy Times, that was something he had aspired to for years. Going through his writings he saved a lot of clips. He was published in Navy Times as a JO3 in 1961, because we have the clips now, but it was interesting. Harry told me a story the other day about John was in a meeting with Sinkpack Fleet, and there were a bunch of journalists there, and one of them was the current Navy Times guy, and he told Harry, "I want his job." And that happened. And he retired from Chinfo and took a job at Navy Times. And John loved the Navy. Okay, people joke, Navy crimes, Army crimes, whatever, all the papers, but John cared. John cared about sailors. He wrote about sailors. He wrote for sailors. He wrote like a chief talking to a sailor on, "This is what you need to know. Don't forget this." And you got that point. But, John, when I showed up, and I'm just, a couple years out of my active duty Navy time, John, sat me down and said, "Okay," and he had kind of a gravelly voice, and said, "Okay, you need to know one thing. We've had a lot of people come in who are former military, and they can't ask the admirals the tough questions. Are you going to be able to do that?" I looked at him and said, yes, I'll do that. And then he also said, the other thing we do here is we tell the whole story. We don't make conclusions. We put out all the facts on both sides of it and let our readers sort out. If you have to write something bad, you better damn well make sure you got both sides of everybody's story. And that is one of the reasons John is here today. He's this ultimate, fair journalist, and really one of the reasons I'm here today, because I made that my priority as well. You need to make sure everything is fair and balanced across the board. And, slanted journalism really has no place, though we see a lot of it these days. But, it's interesting. He started, he graduated, he grew up in Port Lavaca, Texas. So he was a Texan by birth and raising, but he went to high school. And I know he told me the story at one point. I think his father moved there. He moved with his father and graduated from Hialeah High School, returned to Texas, and wrote. All he wanted to be was a writer. He didn't, he walked out of high school and was a cub reporter at two newspapers in the in southern Texas there, near Port Lavaca, the Calhoun County Times and the Victoria Advocate, which John would proudly tell you, the Victoria Advocate was the second oldest newspaper west of the Mississippi. You know, it's in a little dinky town. I even looked it up on the internet recently, and I was like, but that was, you know, he was very proud of that. And amazingly, we have a clipping of John being presented with his certificate for making a chief petty officer, which he achieved in 8 years or less. But as a reporter, John worked for those places, but he thought, you know, wanted more. He joined the Navy Reserve in '56, and then it was called the Navy Air Reserve. And he told me the story about the day that his uniforms showed up in a box, which is the way the Navy used to do it. You joined the Navy Reserve and you got a box and you started drilling. And then in '59, he realized the Navy was his avenue, you know, to do what he really wanted to do. So he joined the Navy, then went to boot camp in San Diego, the greatest boot camp the Navy ever had, and then started his career. And he moved up fast. He was so prolific. I know Master Chief Sistai went over some of the stuff too. That guy marketed his stories as a third class to, he didn't care. He sent it to the big boys. He got rejection letters. We have some of those too. But he also got published. And he just kept going. To the day he retired, he was a voracious advocate of marketing our work to the civilian world and internally, because his stuff was in, you know, many, many different places. He was the fastest two-finger typist I ever saw. This guy, and he was known for destroying keyboards at Navy Times. And every couple of weeks, they'd be bringing a new one in and plugging it in, because when I was just starting there, you know, I did what John Burlage did. I imitated everything he did. If John Burlage was in at 6 in the morning, I'm in at 6 in the morning. And I would crack that door to the newsroom, open it up, dead silence except for tick-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack-a-tack, and it's just going crazy. And that was John, and I could understand why he destroyed keyboards, but he was just amazing. So, you know, the man is upstairs along with Jim Bryant, who was in the first class. Jim worked for John Burlage. So you see, the DINFOS Hall of Fame has continuity within itself as well. The DINFOS Hall of Fame, you know, has continuity within himself. He worked for, as Harry did at Sink Pack Fleet, for John, who, like I said, just he was a great leader, even though sometimes you chafed against him just because we were young and we were crazy at that time, and we didn't realize the lessons he was telling us until years later. So I know that John would be super honored with this. He probably wouldn't show it. He'd do the John Wayne thing. But, you know, just I'm picturing Jim Bryant and John Burlage watching this streaming to heaven, and they're both giving each other a hard time at the moment. So, you know, and John's telling Jim all the stories of how he could have been better. But this needed to be read, because this is the leader John Burlage is. How many of your leaders have left you a typed message on a napkin to tell you a good job? I mean, that stays with you forever. He was a great man, a great sailor, and, you know, he's perfect to be here. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you for that, MC1 Ferrum. Mr. Hastings, will you please come forward?
Well, congratulations to my fellow awardees here. This is really a special day. And I really want to make sure that we acknowledge your contributions, everybody here at the school, the staff, everybody put everything together. And Staff Sergeant Stanford, one of the best renditions I think I've heard of our national anthem. It's really moving. I'm honored to be here. DINFOS has a special place in my heart, as some of you in this room know. I was a Ben graduate. I taught, came back to teach public affairs in the trailers, moved furniture into this building, painted some walls in this building because I put some stuff on the wall that I wasn't allowed to. And Commandant at the time had an interesting way of teaching lessons, one of which was being in here painting over the stuff that wasn't allowed to be on the wall. Hal talked about great accomplishments. Great accomplishments, I believe, come from teams and teamwork, with very few exceptions in the world, in the history of the world. And the team that put me here, there's a lot of people in the room today that I want to make sure know how much I appreciate them. Hal talked about mileage. Hal and I put some mileage in the halls of the Pentagon together. We were fighting our own little strategic communications war in 2008, 2009 within the halls of the Pentagon. And I think we won more battles than we lost. And I think there's remnants of that in everything we do today that some folks may not recognize. The gentleman down on his knees in front, Jeremy Martin, was another one of those teammates of mine. Being a political appointee and walking into the Pentagon is an experience like I can't imagine anything else on this earth. You are expected from the second you walk through the door to know what the heck you're doing and to influence policy and outcomes around the world instantly. There's no 30 days to get it right in the Pentagon. And I was fortunate to have Hal, Admiral Hal at the time, Pittman, who was our Assistant Secretary for Strategic Communications, and Jeremy Martin as the Special Military Assistant there, and they kept me out of trouble, more than I probably even know. So I want to appreciate that. And then I will tell you, I've got a new team with me today. They're here. My direct reports from Bell, where I work, have joined me here today. So my success there, our success there, is from the team that we've built, and I appreciate all of you being here with me today. I had the privilege, we believe, at the time to be the first graduate of the school that made it to the Assistant Secretary role, which was interesting because there were different reactions to that. There were some people who thought the political leader should not be a member of the force. There were people on the political side of the appointment that thought that only the political members in that staff were important. But I took a philosophy in there, and these two helped me, that everybody in public affairs was important. What I think is really worthy of noting is that since I was the first and only at the time member of this school that graduated to be the Assistant Secretary and Chief Spokesman, it's happened 2 more times. And I think there's a realization within the leadership of the Pentagon that the knowledge, skills, and abilities, first of all, the knowledge, skills, and abilities, but more important, that the values that come from this institution are the right values. And they are important values. And so you've seen people like Admiral John Kirby and his success rooted in this institution. And now Pat Ryder will have that opportunity as well. And so I think that just speaks more than anything else to the value of this incredible institution. I'll take a second and say one more thing about the world we're in today. One of those battles that Hal and I fought inside the Pentagon was about our role in combating disinformation. And there was a big debate at the time as to whether that was public affairs' role or not. And whether it is settled today or not doesn't matter. It is the role of this institution to combat misinformation and, more importantly, disinformation. At that time, we were talking about adversaries trying to impact our military operations. But you only have to spend about a second in society today that know misinformation and disinformation is attacking the values of our national institution. And it's coming from all sides, from outside our nation and inside our nation. And I think the value of public affairs is more important today than ever because it is your role, serving public affairs officers and NCOs and soldiers today, to ensure that our military service members are shored up, that they are prepared, that they are aware, that they have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to themselves combat misinformation and disinformation. More importantly, you need to make sure their family members are equally prepared, that they support their service member because they understand what they're hearing in the news and what is true and not true. And then by extension, all of those that support us in uniform across our great nation all need to understand it. So I would challenge you to not lose sight of the fact that we have an enemy among us all the time. And in the information wars, that is a battle that will always go on. So I'm honored, I'm thrilled. The last day that I wore the uniform of the United States Army was at this very podium, more than a few days ago. And I'm thrilled to be back here to be with you today, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hastings. Command Sergeant Major Krouser, will you please come forward?
Good morning. Good morning. Ooh, this is awesome. This is beyond anything I could ever have dreamed or imagined, that I would one day be standing at this podium being inducted into the DINFOS Hall of Fame. I'm beyond words, and that's rare for me, but it is definitely humbling. It is an honor and a privilege to be inducted with this esteemed class that I'm in. So that even makes me a little more nervous. But listen, I started at DINFOS back in 1989 at Fort Benjamin Harrison. And you remember the 19th hole at Fort Ben Harrison, for those who were there. But this is it is an honor for me to be here, to be standing behind this podium, trying to give a speech that I played it over and over in my mind, and now I can't even remember what I was going to say. But got this for you. Listen, I wouldn't trade anything for the journey that I've been on in Army Public Affairs. Nothing could compare to what the Army has done for me, what DINFOS did for me in laying the foundation for the career that I've had. It all started with Sergeant First Class Dan Hassett at Fort Ben, and he just laid it out for us in our journalism class, and he was so profound, had such a profound effect on me, that when I got to my first duty station at Fort Lee, Virginia, where then Major in the Army Reserve, Mary Kay Eater, was my first PAO. She made sure that I was not a one-dimensional public affairs specialist. She made me do command information, community relations, and media relations. So I was well-rounded in public affairs from my first duty station until I got into, and I loved the operational Army. I loved being out there with soldiers, and I stand on some broad shoulders today, because it's because of those soldiers that I worked for, who took care of me, and I hope I took care of them as well as they took care of me. I wish that I pray that I've had an impact, as much of an impact on their lives as they've had on mine. Because listen, when I started at DINFOS in '89, I came back to DINFOS for then the editor's course. I came back for the intermediate photojournalism course. So DINFOS laid the foundation, and then they gave me some career-enhancing abilities and capabilities that I took with me throughout my career, shared it with my soldiers, sent them back to schools when I had the opportunity, when I got into a leadership role. And I've had some good mentors throughout my career. They gave me the hard nose, and I took it and built on that, continued to press on, because I'm not one who gives up. I don't like anything to beat me. So I'm going to press. I'm going to find a way to do what I think is right for the soldiers, for the career field. And I have loved every moment of it. My favorite duty station was at 3rd Infantry Division at Fort Stewart, Georgia. I know it's hard for you all to believe that, Rock of the Marne, but that's where I met Sergeant Major Carl. She was then Specialist Carl, PFC Carl, Specialist Carl. But this is just incredible to think that a little old country girl from St. Helena Island in South Carolina could achieve the things that I've achieved throughout my career. I thought making it to Sergeant First Class, there was a God rank. Once you make Sergeant First Class, you have reached the pinnacle. As I kept doing, getting promoted, I was like, oh, this is even better. This is even better. I can do more. I can help my soldiers even more. It's all about taking care of the people and then the people taking care of you. I want to thank a whole lot of people. I want to thank everybody in this room, and especially those who worked behind the scenes to put this together, because Colonel Martin, Colonel retired Jeremy Martin, and I were here when we did the first Hall of Fame induction ceremony. It's not easy. It's a lot of hard work. They don't get a lot of gratitude, but I am eternally grateful to you all for the hard work you put in to make this possible. I am grateful to the nominating committee who selected me, and to Mr. Terrence Hayes, who couldn't be with us today, for putting my packet in. And I would be remiss if I did not thank my wonderful family, because like Mr. Pittman said, without their support, I would not, those 26 years would not have been as profitable and valuable as they have been. So to Angela, Brittany, Terrence, Zora, and August, thank you so much for putting up with me, for being there for me. And to all of those folks here at DINFOS, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I am deeply honored. Thank you again.
Thank you, Command Sergeant Major Krouser. Ms. Pedene, will you please come forward?
Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for being here. You know, life is full of twists and turns, and we never know what the journey is going to bring for us. It was a twist that got me into the Navy. My house burnt down when I was a senior going into my high school year. And my parents said, Paula, we just don't have the money for college anymore for you to find that path that they knew I wanted to do. So I looked to the Navy, I looked to the Air Force, I briefly looked at the Army and the Marine Corps. Because mind you, this was 1976 when women didn't have a lot of roles in the military. I chose the Navy. I went in as an undesignated seaman. They didn't know about journalism and my love for journalism. So at my first duty station, which was the naval facility in Bermuda, I created a monthly newspaper called the Knapback Driftwood, and I did it on a mimeograph machine, running that ink and doing it on my own time. It was that newspaper that got my commanding officer to say, when my orders came through to go be another undesignated seaman at the Admiral's staff in San Diego, he said, oh no, she needs to go to journalism school. And in 1980, I crossed the threshold of Fort Benjamin Harrison, Indiana. I was Rundicized, if any of you know. And I had a beautiful time. I went through Navy Print School, the Shipboard Information and Television Entertainment. The sight system was just coming on board. And I was voice qualified, so went through the Navy Broadcasting School as well. From there, I went to Midway Island, worked at NBS Detachment 27, where I made mistakes in front of thousands of people, not hundreds of thousands of people, and honed my skills. And from there, I went to the Far East Network in Tokyo, Japan, which was really a beautiful experience that helped me really hone my skills. I re-enlisted at the time because I had heard about a job at a television show called Navy News This Week. And I thought, ooh, that sounds good to me. So I applied, and I was the first female anchor selected for that slot. And I was the only woman amongst an all-male crew. And to all the women who are here today, I thank you for taking the leap, for standing strong. You know, we had to stand strong back then, and because I did, it helped build the camaraderie and the service that we have and the unity we have today. From Navy News, I had done 2.5 years on my 3-year tour, and I was trying to decide what to do next, because it's hard when you're working at the Pentagon to leave it. The political bug kind of either bites you or it doesn't, and it bit me. But I was walking down the hall one day, and I met this charming Navy lieutenant named Bill Pedene, and he was an officer. I was enlisted. He helped me make my decision to transition out of the Navy so he could have a career. And we followed along, and I had some beautiful times in Washington. I got to cover the presidential elections, the Iran-Contra scandal, you know, the Graham-Rudman transition of the bases. It was really a beautiful time. And then we shuffled off to Buffalo, New York. I worked there for WBFO and for a TV show called For Veterans Only that was aired on PBS nationwide. And from Buffalo, we went to Denver, Colorado, where I got into public affairs, really cut my teeth, and became the deputy director for VA, for the Office of Public and Intergovernmental Affairs. From Buffalo, my family is in Arizona. I transitioned to Phoenix, Arizona, became the first full-time public affairs officer at the Phoenix VA. And I had a stellar career for 18 years, earning Silver Anvils, Telly Awards, National Association of Government Communicator Awards. And it's like Bob and others have said, you don't do it on your own. It's a team. And it's a team that helps you get to places like this. But the biggest turn, twist, trajectory in my career was becoming a whistleblower. And it's not something you want to do. I didn't set out to be a whistleblower, but to this day, I know that God had me where He needed me to be. And I stood strong to the truth. It was a very difficult and very challenging time. And because of it, a lot of things fell. A lot of dominoes fell. The Secretary of Veterans Affairs was forced to resign. Other people finally got fired after accountability. But as to what Bob and Hal have been working on, there is no place for misinformation. There is no place for disinformation. In our realm, we are to speak the truth. We are to share both sides. That's the importance of what we do. That alone keeps us strong. And that's our mantra. That's our mantra. So I was fortunate enough to recover from the whistleblower journey, received a settlement, had some really good bosses. One of them is here today, Michael Odell, who didn't care that I was a whistleblower. He really treated me right. He let me do the things I needed to do in my job because he knew I was passionate about it. And to this day, I still love public relations and broadcasting. It's one of the deepest burning fires in my heart. It really is. And to Ev Chasen and to Bill Outlaw, my colleagues at VA that are here with us today, thank you so much for your support through that journey as well. We couldn't have done it without you. I retired from the VA in 2020, but not before having the wonderful opportunity to implement something that I hope will continue to touch positively the lives of our veterans for years to come, and that is the Mission Act. The Mission Act allows veterans to have a choice for their health care. No longer shall they wait endless days, months, years to get the health care you have all earned through your service. And that was kind of the shining moment until this point. To be in the DINFOS Hall of Fame, which I didn't even know existed, is really quite an honor. To all of those who traveled the journey with me through all the twists and turns, I thank you for your support, for your service, and to all of those who will come behind us, I wish you Godspeed. I wish you Godspeed on the journey. And to my loving family, you are the best gift God has given me, to Robert, to Stephen, and to Bill. Thank you for the hard journey it's been. I look forward to the more to come, okay? And thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pedene. Mr. Taylor, will you please come forward?
It is such a great privilege to be here today to accept this award on behalf of my father and the family of Thomas Clark Taylor. His untimely passing last year was devastating to the family, to his many friends, and those who worked with him for so many years. When Mike Levine called me to tell me Dad had been nominated by Soldiers Radio and Television alumni and had been accepted for induction into DINFOS Hall of Fame, I immediately thought of all the times Dad had mentioned the support he received from his staff over the years and how we would have not been successful without that support. He mentioned how he genuinely loved working with you and how proud he was when any of you went on to enhance your own careers. It would be difficult to acknowledge everyone who helped Dad along the way in his career. I could not name, nor do I know all of those individuals, but you know who you are. He would sincerely thank you. If he were here today, I know he is in spirit, he would not miss an event like this. He would say this award is a result of your efforts, not his. Dad was an inspiration by example. To come from my humble beginnings, growing up in a community of Oklahoma, Florida, raised by his grandparents and introduced to broadcasting by a friend's father who happened to own a radio station. Dad found a natural fit for himself. He was blessed with the gift of gab, and he was tenacious enough to develop it into a career in broadcasting. The rest was history. Dad was a people person, never meeting a stranger, always engaging with others, being sensitive to their needs, and showing generosity when needed. I'm sure many of you have seen examples of his kindness. If he were here to leave a message for you today, he would say it does not matter where you come from or what limitations you face in life, follow your dreams and great things will happen. Dad inspired others to better themselves, to become more than they have imagined. This award is part of his legacy and will be cherished by the family, his friends, and those who had the privilege of working with him. It would have been wonderful if he could have been here today to receive this recognition. We are honored for him. He would have sincerely thanked you. Let's enjoy this moment for him and with him. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Congratulations again to all of our honorees. Let's have one more round of applause for the Defense Information School Hall of Fame class of 2022. Will the newest members of the DINFOS Hall of Fame please come to the stage for a photo with Mr. Pittman and Colonel McNorton?
Do we want them to have their plaques with them, or just them?
I believe we're just doing it.
We need some folks to be in the front. And we're trying to do this in 2 rows. So, Mark, you're good in the middle. So I don't want to block everybody. You know what? And I'm going to get here like perfect right. Does that work? You're good. I think we need Paula. Paula down front. Can I get everyone to take a half step to their right? Like just and
I'll step back here.
Yeah.
You just can't shake
Get everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the ceremony. Please form a line to my left to personally congratulate the inductees. Thank you very much, everybody attending and watching online.
Inductees,
Yep.
inductees right here. It's a receiving line.